button. There we go. Now we're talking. We're live. Wendy Andrews, I'm glad you're on this call because I'm going to be looking at your work. I can remember all of your pictures off the top of my head without seeing them. But that's not to say that I don't have some advice for you, which I do, but I liked the work. We're just taking a second here before we get started to make sure that everyone can hear me, number one. And everyone can hear me okay? Can you see me? Can you hear me? I'm assuming yes, because we are in the dialogue. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Use the chat. I don't want to hear my own voice all day long. That's someone let me know that you can hear me. Yes, Carrie Knudsen in Norway. I'm dying to go to Norway. Somebody reached out to me like a year ago and asked if I wanted to teach a workshop in Norway. And I, of course, said yes, but I can't remember who it was. And I can't remember the city or town that he was in, but whatever. Hey, Anne from England. I'll be in London in 2 weeks. We're doing a photo walk. So before we get started, and make sure you keep popping into the chat to tell me where you're coming in from, but a little housekeeping here before we get started. Number one, there are several other Blurb folks behind the scenes that are making this call possible. We have Michelle, who's checking in from an island, a remote island somewhere in the world. And we have Susan and we have Kara. And so without them, this would not be happening. So I have the easy part. I just have to sit here and talk about work. They have all the logistical back end. So we have to thank them for being here. And Rick from India, I know you from my website. So how you doing? And we've got Maine. I'll be in Maine the month of August, by the way, for those wondering. Xenia, I'm looking at your work as well. And I don't know exactly how to pronounce your name, Xenia. But I'm reviewing your work, and Pat's coming in from Houston, my old stomping ground in the Lone Star State. So, okay, one thing I want to bring to your attention before we get started is we are doing another event on March 27th, and it's a Create With Me event, but it's a little different this time because we're specifically talking about portfolios, how to build, why and how to build a portfolio. So if you want to tune in for that, there is an Eventbrite link for that I think the team is going to put into the chat. So if you want to go and sign up for that early, that's probably a good idea. And number two, tell us what kind of events you want to see in addition to what we're already doing. So a little bit curious about that. Okay, we got Michigan, Cotter. Wow. What day is it in Cotter? It's got to be, I don't know, 3-4 days from now or 3 or 4 days before now, something like that. Russia. Wow, this is so great. This is maybe my favorite part of the whole thing is to see where everybody's coming in from. Think about that. We have Russia, we have India, we have Qatar, we've got all over the United States. Do we have any Latin Americans here? Deep South Texas. Ooh, not even South Texas, Deep South. Okay. So before we jump into the images, Scotland, I've heard of that. Again, I will be in London from March 9th, 10th, basically, through the 13th. So if you're around, make sure you reach out and let me know, or come see me, or come show your work and your book, or come to our photo walk, or all the above. I'm also hitting the photo and video show in the London Book Fair. So anybody who wants to go along, let me know. Before we get started on looking at the images, there are a list of things I need to read through, and I need you to bear with me. If you've been on this call before, you've been on an image review before, you're going to have heard this stuff before, but I need to say it because several of the people that submitted images they did some things that I wish they hadn't done, and I need to make sure that this gets across. So for those of you who submitted or didn't submit, these are things you need to know. Number one, I am not here to crush you about your work. I don't believe in tearing people down when it comes to reviewing their work. I don't see a benefit to that. I've seen that happen many times in my life with other photographers who for some reason decide they want to crush people. I don't see a benefit to that. Of course, as soon as the call starts, my phone starts ringing. Number two, make sure you put your name on your files when you submit them. Most of you did this. Most of you, when I downloaded your files, I could immediately search your name and I found the files and was able to handle them. But some of you had weird like DSC file names, or there was no name, and it's really hard to track. Anytime your images go out in the world, you want to make sure that they are identifiable to you, because otherwise bad things happen. People will take those files, they will use those files, and there's no attribute. So you want to make sure that you're there. Number 3, don't submit huge file sizes, because again, am I a nefarious human being? Depends on who you ask. I'm going to say no, but I know a lot of nefarious people in the world. And if your files are huge, if you're sending 30 meg TIFF files, somebody's going to take those and print those or do something with them they shouldn't. So when you submit to Blurb or anyone else, you always want to submit at web size files so they can't be utilized in print or sold off as commercial images. Just keep the file size small. Number 4, if I have an ongoing conversation with you online through my Discord channel or my YouTube channel or my website, and I don't get to you, it might be because we already have a conversation going about your work outside of this. So I might still get to you. But if I see your name and I go, oh, I just talked to you about something online, then I'm less inclined to do it on the blurb side. Number 5, submit more than one image. It's very difficult for me to get a bead on your photography if you only submit one image. Thankfully, no one did this. So the message is getting across that submitting more than one file so that I have an idea to judge what you can do over a small body of work or a picture package. The next point is, and this is going to be interesting because the next image breakdown we do is going to be centered on street photography. So, but here's the thing. If you're going to submit street photography, you've got to up your game a little bit, because I see a ton of street photography that all looks exactly the same. So street photography, you really want, and there's somebody whose work I'm reviewing today who does a really good job with street. And I'm going to talk about why that person makes good street work and why it's better than most of what I see. The next point is try to avoid sending 5 or 6 random unrelated images, because again, it's harder to get a bead on the skill level unless like all 5 or 6 of them are just mind-blowingly good, where we all are just bowing down and people are lighting candles and building shrines to your image. Otherwise, it just feels a bit random. So think about theme. The next point is, if you shot on film or didn't shoot on film, film makes no difference to me whatsoever. I love film, but because an image is made on film has nothing to do with whether or not it's a good image or not. So sometimes I see people submitting and they talk a lot about the fact that they shot film, but they forgot to make interesting images. So film is cool. If you want to use it, just make sure that the image comes first and the materials come second. Second to last point, and most of you did a really good job, but some of you I'm gonna tap you to do a little more, is you need to write with your work. I need to know the story behind the images that I'm looking at, because if I don't know that story, it's harder for me to judge what's going on. And last, don't rush trying to get good, right? Just don't rush it. Photography is difficult regardless of whatever the popular consensus in the online world tells you. Photography is hard. The technology is improved dramatically, but the number of top 5% images hasn't really changed much over the last 40 years. It's really hard to make unique, identifiable imagery. It took me a decade to figure out how to do that, and that was working full-time as a photographer. It still took me a decade, but I am a C student and I did go to public school. So not like my expectation, the expectation level of me was high from anyone. My high school guidance counselor, in fact, I never met with a high school guidance counselor for that matter. So, okay, we have more folks from Russia. The link to the next Create With Me is now in the chat. All right, so I'm going to share a screen. Just let me double check here in the private chat and make sure nothing nefarious is going down. Nope, I think we're good. Okay, if you have questions, pop them in the chat. They're going to feed me some of those questions and I'll answer them. So I'm going to present and I'm going to share a window. We're going to go here. And this is going to be a sneak peek, right? You're going to see this window. Everyone's going to be like, oh, he's going to review me. And then other people are going to be like, oh, no, he's not going to review me. But don't worry. If I don't get to you today, we'll get to you the next time. Just everyone relax. We're going to start with Alexandre. And Alexandre wrote me the other day. And he wrote me on my Discord channel. And he said, hey, I shoot landscapes and I submitted. And I know that you don't like landscapes. And I know that a lot of other people don't like landscapes, but I hope you get to review. And I wrote him back and said, don't do that. Don't ever, whatever it is you want to do with a camera, own it. If you want to shoot landscapes, then own the fact that you're a landscape photographer. And when someone asks, you go, yeah, that's exactly what I shoot. And here's why. This is why I love to do it. So never like sell yourself short. You always want to come from a position of power and not a position of subservience to, well, you know, I know you might not like blah, 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 because I like this work. So he's 28 years old. He's from Portugal. That's in South America, I'm pretty sure. That's my public school education. And I started taking photographs when I was 16. Geez, that's amazing. And he wanted to identify birds that he saw on the walks. That's right up my alley. I soon fell in love with nature and started photographing landscapes. I always carry a camera with me and planned whenever I visit new places, favorite themes, the beginning and end of the day. Okay, so a lot of really good things to take away here, because you've got 28-year-old, started shooting at 16, trying to identify. You see how he's built into this story. So let's take a look at these. Take a look at these images. So we got minimal landscape, little snow in the foreground or sand, little aerial view. Very nice. I like this picture a lot. This kind of a tried and true formula here for seascapes is that long shutter speed on a tripod blurring the water. I love this. I'm kind of a sucker for this kind of look. And then we have more of a basic image here, top down along a coastline. There are a couple of things here. The two images, well, the one image that jumps out to me for sure is this one. I love the human element. I love the minimal landscape. You have a dynamic element here where it draws your eye to the horizon line. You've also got a nice horizon line here. It's a bit dead centered, but I'm nitpicking here. And I love the fact that this paddle is up in that position. It's a moment. He's not sitting with the paddle resting across the front of the kayak. He's in motion. You have a tiny bit of like wake here from the thing. This is a really beautiful image. Really love this. And this one I think is good. I think this balances well with the human in the kayak, because you have these really small minimal elements here. And I think that works well. And then you have this one, which is okay. This is, I do like in the foreground here, you have a little bit of light color that separates the foreground from the midground. So, and that's really what you're looking for with a wide angle lens. You're always looking for something in the foreground, and then you're looking for something in the midground, and you're looking for something in the background. So this is a nice little bit of layering here. It's not the most exciting shot. It's a bit more expected, but that's okay. You're feeling your way around. Love that. This one, this technique is really interesting. I would suggest doing a separate body that's just this technique. And then this is probably my least favorite image, only because it's a little bit more expected than the others. And I think the others are stronger. I think these other pictures, but that, like, if you walk away from a day of shooting and you walk away with something like this, you won. That's a really nice frame. So there's plenty of things that you can do to develop from here. You can work on these themes of minimalist human in nature. You could also throw in a piece of color, just like a color portrait, to see what happens. But I would continue to work on the man minimal in nature with these also long exposures on the tripod. Okay, we're going to Boris. Boris, and let me see, Topashinov. I think I'm close. Boris Topashinov. Okay, let's just have a look at what this is called The Beekeeper. He said, people still don't fully recognize bees play a crucial role in the ecosystem. And I'm paraphrasing and I'm skipping through here, by the way. Bees face significant threats due to human actions. This is absolutely true. We're facing that here in New Mexico. Excess use of agrochemicals, the land's being converted into industrial monoculture farms. They are a bellwether towards the future of our world. I love bees, and I think that this is a great story. And his big question is, are we saving the right bees? The goal of the project through this photography essay, I hope to ignite empathy and inspire viewers to appreciate bees' significance and their understanding. So this is a really nice written recap of what this story is about. As somebody reviewing this portfolio, that is what I need to see in here, because now I know what I'm looking at. But I'm going to start here. Just overall, look at how different this looks. Okay. And primarily you're starting with this. This I absolutely love. It says beekeeper up here in the top, Boris Topashinov here. And then you've got this unbelievable like honeycomb dialogue formula, NH2, NH, whatever. I got a D in math. I have no idea what that means. But anyway, it's gorgeous. It's different. It's not a photograph. And then as you dive in, we go here. I'm going to skip forward. I'm going to go to what I would put second would be this, which is Colony Collapse by Wildfires. You have a bit of copy. You've got this beautiful, like scientific top-down portrait of these, what I'm guessing are dead bees, and this really nice little copy block. But look how balanced and nice that page feels. I love also too that the copy, the title up here is highlighted in gray. I think this looks is a beautiful thing to go from that cover, that yellow cover, to here, and then potentially to something like this, which are a very simple, strong, clean, detailed image. There is no possible way for your eye to get distracted. Your eye goes right here. And that is the point of that photograph. Very simple. Look at the edges. There's nothing bright, nothing distracting around the sides. Clean, solid image. And also look how he's laid it out on the page. So hypothetically, the gutter of the page is somewhere maybe around here or here. Very nice. Whoops. And then we get into the more, I don't know, kind of action shots, which are this, whoops, and get this, and this. That's a very nice package of images. You know, this is with the fire and the smoke. You've got the detail shot. You've got this beautiful sort of entryway into the story, scientific. You've got the action of the bees flying. This looks like a strobe shot at night, or maybe light from the fire that's lighting them up. They don't need to be tack sharp. I know exactly what they are. And this beautiful cover. I think this is a really good start. This is a really nice little, kind of reminds me of what you would see in a very nice like editorial or magazine piece about bees. So Boris, I don't really have much more to say other than I think this is a really good job. And I would suggest that you just keep working on this because that's a great story. I mean, again, the weird thing is, I think a significant number of people on the planet know that bees are in trouble. How do you tell that story in a different way? And I think one of the ways is to use like that cover. To me is very interesting. That turns this into a design piece. We're always looking for new ways to tell the same story. Someone said very Trent Park vibes, and I think that's true. Trent Park's the only Australian member of Magnum, and he's a really good photographer and bookmaker. So let's move on. Xenia, I'm hoping I'm remotely in the ballpark of pronouncing your name correctly. So Xenia said, I like the authenticity of shooting documentary style, raw, unplanned moments. Life looks like art to me. Okay. So that's an okay thing, okay description, but I'd still like a little more. I want to know a little bit more about what's going on in your head and where and what these images are. So we're going to start with this one. Now, there's a reason why that I chose this work to show. So we're going to go through these images first, and then we're going to go back. So look at this. Look at this. 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 And this. Okay, this one, it's okay. It's okay. I like the balance of the red of his shirt with the red of the signs. No parking. He's in the midst of a stride. It's okay. You know, you've got this big dark area here. It's okay. I mean, I think this is nice. His body position is nice, but it's not my favorite image. If we go here, yes, this guy has an amazing head of hair. That's like, I don't know. That is like a supercut dream right there. So yeah, you got this amazing head of hair. You do have a foreground and a background here, and you kind of have a nice diagonal line. But again, I would kind of put this image in the same position as that first one. It's okay. This one, certain aspects of this I like. I love the fact that they're both have this angle to them, and they both have hats on, which means they're probably at some convention where they were forced into wearing those hats. The focus, however, is on the tree and not on these guys. So I would probably shift. I would have focused on the guys and let the tree go soft. You do have some kind of open space over here too. Maybe the image is maybe like here. So always lean forward, always get tighter. So I think, again, this image is okay. And this one, this is probably the outlier. I would say that, this looks like a film image, like a little bit overexposed film image. There are some interesting aspects to this. I mean, you have the repetition of shapes here. You have the nice wake from the boat, and it's centered nicely between these two with the skyline in the background. Again, it's okay, but the piece de resistance. This is a great picture. This is good. This is why I chose your work, because I don't care about the other 4 pictures now. I don't. Those pictures are what I would call sketches. You were on your way somewhere, and this picture is where you landed, because this is a beautiful photograph. There's a bunch of things about this I like. One, you have this super clean wall in the background. There's no distractions. You have all the patterns of this sofa, these lines that basically all throughout the image. Super nice. The light is beautiful because it must be a giant broad light source behind you, because look at the highlight on her leg. This is all highlight. This is all from, and even this and this are highlight from the light source behind you. But look at the crop. First of all, I can just see her eye here, which is huge. And just look at this like tapestry, this little mountain range here. I just think this is a beautiful, clean, simple moment that is great. This is a great portrait to me. So that's, again, when we were looking at Alexandre's work, the first batch, a single image out of a set of 5 that makes me go, oh, you're capable of doing this, do more of this kind of thing. So this is a really nice image. I'd be happy to definitely have that portrait in my portrait world. And these, again, these are like learning images. There's aspects to each of these that I like, but this is by far the strongest image. And even this little like white, her toe right here that anchors that side of the frame, it's really important. Really nice. Very, very nice. All right, Tom. Oh, this is hilarious, because what I was going to tell Tom, he actually wrote in the bottom. So Tom is writing about a place called St. Ives, which is in England, and it's on the coast, and it's a lot of artists have been there. And now, like many other places in the world, there's a lot of friction between us tourists and the local population. I live in a very touristy area in Santa Fe, and I can tell you, I know how you feel. So, but there's a couple of things, and what he nailed with his own work was exactly what I'm going to tell him. So let's look at this work. So he's traipsing around here. He's on vacation, and he's starting to make pictures. And you got this one. You got this one. You got this one. Man on cell. This is ubiquitous to the world now. And then they're looking for a pirate ship on the horizon. So now, one thing you'll notice, person from behind, person from the side, from behind. And what Tom was saying about his work is he wants to go back and he wants to make faces. He wants to shoot portraits. And that is exactly what I was going to say. So like, this is an image. This feels like a starter image where you get into the location where you want to photograph, and like to break the ice, you just shoot a couple of frames. It's like a boxer warming up, or a dancer or a fencer or anybody else. You're like warming up and you're like, okay, I got to get the wiggles out, and then I can really start to photograph. So I think that this is an image that is what I call a burner image. It's just getting you warmed up. There's some elements of this that are good, but I think it's lacking in some ways. You have a nice foreground here, and you have a midground, and you have a background. And that's what we're after with wide angle lenses. We're trying to build depth within the frame. So I love the fact that little doggy here is perfectly centered in the space. So it highlights the dog. And I like how the dog is in mid-stride and the dude is in mid-stride. That's kind of nice. You also have this person in the background here, which is kind of a nice filler. And you also have, because you have this white space, you have this repeating shapes down here, which kind of anchor the background. The one thing that's missing to me is something right here, like a human head, a dog, who knows, something that would make me focus more on this foreground and not the background. So obviously I'm asking a lot here. It's not like you can fabricate something to pop up in this space, but that's kind of what I felt like. I felt like you were hoping that something would be in this space to anchor that foreground. As we keep going here, okay, now this guy, you don't wear 4 armbands to the beach and not want to be photographed. So, and also he has that gold chain thing around his waist. This dude is screaming, please make a portrait of me. So Tom, to your point, when you go back, I want to see you on the other side of this person. And I want to see you establishing a relationship with this person and not just a single, hey, can I make your picture? He says, yes, you don't move him. You shoot 2 frames and then you wander away. I see people do this all the time. When you come to shoot portraits of people, you need to understand something. When you approach someone and say, can I make a portrait of you? And they say yes, the power shifts 100% to your side. They are waiting to be directed, and being directed makes it easier for them to participate because you're explaining, you're saying, hey, I need to move you over here because the light's better and I want to shoot backlit. And, you know, this is going to make those gold bars on your arms really pop with the backlight. That tells them, oh, like this guy has a plan. This is not just a quick snap, you know, like a quick snatch and grab with a photo. They want to be directed. And that's what you have to practice as a portrait photographer. What you have to realize too is that you're going to hear no. And hearing no is terrible no matter how long you've done this. When you say, hey, can I make a picture? And they go, no, you're like, oh, that sucks. But it happens and you just get over it. This picture, again, kind of a burner picture. It's not as good as your other work. And the same with this one. It's okay. But to me, the sweet spot of your stuff is here on the other side. And keep doing this, but look for more dynamic elements in the foreground. That's what my advice would be. Okay, Antonio. Oh, this is really good. Okay, Antonio Mota. No Photoshop, images as I see them, captured by a simple iPhone. Photo is light. Many thanks for the kind attention. Okay. Need a little bit more, Antonio. I'm not letting you off the hook that easy. Tell me a little more who you are, why you're doing this, what these are. Because for everyone on this call, look at these 2 images on the left and look at these 3 on the right and tell me that those are not 2 completely different bodies of work. Frankly, I don't need to see these. I don't need this guy. He looks super happy. And I hope that someday in my life, I'm that happy because he looks super stoked and he looks like a super nice guy. And I do like the color and he's got a great beard. I'd never be able to grow a beard like that. So I have beard envy. This guy, he's smoking away. I don't need to see these because you know why? Because I have this and this and this to look at. And these are weird and different. And these make me wonder what's going on. Because this to me, Antonio, you put in because these are expected. These are easy. These are low-hanging fruit. But now that I know that you can do this, this, and this, I don't need to see these other ones because they're not as good. This is weird. This took me a while to figure out what was going on here. I thought you shot doubles, multiple exposures. Then I saw the stand. This is weird and different. And I love this. I love the fact that you have this jagged edge here and you have a nice mid-ground. Like this is really important. You also have a little reflection of the guy here. You've got another dog over here. So you've got a super solid mid-ground to go with your foreground. And then just enough in the background here with the waves to give you a nice background. Nice. So you got nice layers here. But it's weird. It took me a second to figure out what's going on. And that means that I was paying attention to your photograph. And that's the goal. The same with this. I was like, that's a beautiful, interesting, really different kind of scene. Like I want to know what's happening here. How come we don't have giant glowing orbs in my community? And this, same thing. I wasn't sure what I was looking at. I first thought that this was water. And then I thought, no, that's not really, maybe there's water down there or there's water below this. And this is the light. This right here is the light like bouncing off of this. I don't know what this is. And that's why it's interesting. And you also got Mr. Pigeon here in mid-flight. So I don't know what this is, but these 3 are really solid. I love these. And the others, again, once I know that you can do this kind of work, I don't really need to see the other stuff. And by the way, it doesn't matter to me if it's an iPhone. And I think even saying it's an iPhone, if you identify your camera, it's kind of an amateur move because no one who takes photography seriously is going to fixate on whether it was an iPhone or a Nikon Z8. It just doesn't matter to them. They're 100% involved in what images you're making and the story you're telling. So I wouldn't necessarily say, hey, these are iPhone images. I would just describe more about like your philosophy behind what you're looking for or how you see color or something else. But overall, I think I really like those three images. All right, let me have a look-see here and make sure I'm not dropping anything. Again, if you guys have questions, pop them in the chat, and then I will hypothetically stop at some point and talk about them. So this is an interesting story. We're moving on to Robert Miller here. Summer of 1975. Think about that. Star Wars wasn't even out yet. I was a young, aspiring college photojournalist searching for a compelling visual thesis to complete my studies. Armed with little more than a camera and insatiable curiosity, I immersed myself in the Quincy, Massachusetts Fire Department. Fast forward 50 years, he goes back and re-photographs with these people. And what's interesting is when I first saw this work, I looked at some of these files and thought, this looks like transparency film. But let's have a look here at the images. And by the way, Robert, when I was in college, I connected with the Austin Fire Department, and they nicknamed me the Black Cat because the second I showed up on scene, the city would set itself on fire, and it was just one calamity after another. And firemen are very superstitious, as you know. And they were like, you're the Black Cat. We know when you walk in the building that something horrible is going to happen. So, you know, just kind of, I'm just doing my part. But look at the color tone here. Look at this. Look at the intensity of this guy's face. These guys take what they're doing, thankfully, take it very, very seriously. But look at the color. That's nice. This looks like, okay, look, this is slow shutter. But this dude right here is tack sharp. And that's all I need. He's sharp. Soft, 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 lots of movement here, which means Robert's shooting probably wide open at a very slow shutter speed, hoping to get something in focus. You've got just enough of Quincy here on the side to see where we're at. I love this. I love I love the lug nuts here on the wheel to the right. That's nice. Repetition of shapes. You also have this line that continues on their jackets that kind of ties them all together. That's a nice frame. And then again, back to the red, the smoke. And then this looks like a very different color palette. This is modern. This looks way more tactical. Got flags on their sleeves and that garish yellow green that we all love so much. And then this kind of like moody thing here. You know, this is kind of the artist in Robert coming out saying, I don't want just straight firefighting images. I want a little bit more atmospheric mood and feel. I think pictures like this are really important. Pictures like this will introduce this work to a body of people that wouldn't normally look at it. Like this image, they wouldn't do anything for them because it's too straightforward. It's like an action shot. This beautiful end of the fire, winding down, guys looking tired. That's a nice frame. Again, back to action. I think where this is a really important kind of thing. So I think overall this works well. I think I like this idea of pairing old and new, and that's interesting. These kind of pictures to me work well as chapter heads where you could offset this with copy. So it's a picture that takes a minute for people to look at. You want them to slow down. And when you throw a piece of text on the other page, that's a break in the images and it forces them to slow down a little bit to read the text. And then it gives them a chance to like really consume this kind of picture. But overall nice. If I had to cut one, I'd probably cut this one because I think this is even more dramatic. And I love the pulled back. I love you can still see the flame and the smoke. So yeah, if I was going to cut one, I'd cut that one and leave the other four. Although this is a very different color palette. Very different color palette. So you've got some balance to do, but these three, this one, and this one are a really nice little package. Okay, Jim. Jim's a portrait photographer. So these are portraits of a transgender community, 20 individuals, and asked them to describe their experiences. That's really smart. So he's not only making portraits of these folks, he's asking them to describe their experience. And for any of you who are working in photography, I cannot stress to you how important the story and the writing is in tandem with the photographs. The photo books now that are just photo, 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 you know who those are designed for? Those are designed for one group of people, and that is other photographers. The general public wants to be educated and entertained. And oftentimes that requires copy in addition to the photograph. So the books that I end up buying now are books that aren't often straight just photographer saying, look how great I am as a photographer. They're books with a photographer saying, I have a story I want you to know. So he's asking them, I'm not going to, Jim, I'm not going to go through all what people have said, but I recommend people to track down Jim and see what these folks have had to say about their experience, because I think it's a really important part of it. Also works incredibly well side with the images. But in terms of the portraiture, let's just go through these first and have a look. We've got this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. So Jim, the first thing that I would suggest is, you see the distance in which you're photographing this person? I like it. I like seeing a little bit more of the atmosphere around the person, and I like to see their whole body. I think if you had cropped this like you cropped the other ones, I would have missed this. And I think that that's important. And I also love the fact that there's no shoes. I think that that's a really interesting, all these things are intriguing to me and make me want to know more about this person. The crop, so this one, and this one, I think the crops are too tight. I would back up, because I think this cutting here is a kind of an awkward crop space. I would back up and I would try to photograph these people more in line with the first person. And it just gives you a little bit more space. And I would try to get a cohesiveness, a consistency to the actual portraits themselves. So this one you're using, it looks like you're popping a little strobe in here, which I like. I think that's a really nice looking technique. You're popping a strobe in here. Looks like you're popping a strobe here and a little bit here, because they're catch lights, unless there's like maybe the light from the left is strong enough to do that. But I would like, this is a regal looking person. I want to see more of this person, and I would back up and give it a little more space. The next thing, which I think is really important, is look at how close the background is to the subject. There's no way for you to isolate the subject because the background is so close. And I think this is the same, and this is the same. So I would move the person at least 10 feet or 15 feet away from the background. That way, if you're shooting wide angle, or you're shooting a lens at wide open, the fall off is going to soften all of that, and it's going to force the viewers to look at the person even more than they're doing right now. So there's definitely, I love portrait series. I think it's a super smart way to work, and it's also a great way to build a relationship with the people in your frames. But I would definitely do those two things. I would back up, give a little more space to the portrait, and I would get them away from the immediate background. Jim, oh Jim, I put you in here because I totally feel for you. So look at these pictures. We've all been there. We've all been there. So Jim says, look, I need feedback about how improving my inside shots, especially in low light setting. I also take photos for numerous sporting events inside and outside. Any suggestions on improving the sharpness of the photos, staying in focus? I have a Canon R6 and R5. So your cameras are covered. Both of those cameras are insanely good. So we've all been there, right? Our families, oh, you're a photographer. Oh, you have a camera. Hey, can you do us a favor? Can you shoot group shots at our community meeting? And you're like, oh no, did I say I was a photographer? So Jim, what you need is a strobe. You need a flash, because that's what you're going to use to fill in these images. You've got to overpower the existing light. You've got to add to it and pop a strobe in so that all of these eyes, all of these faces and eyes are lit up. There's really no way around that. And for anyone out there that says, oh, I don't know how to use a strobe, this is in 1985. When I started shooting, you had to have a PhD in mathematics to figure out how strobes work. Now you just put it on, you put it on the hot shoe, turn it on, and it balances everything perfectly. The same with this. This just needs strobe. You've got to fire a little strobe into this to give light, because these places where you're photographing, this has nothing to do with you. It's not your fault. These places are evil when it comes to the lighting. The guy who designed, or the person who designed the lighting in this space, is evil. They were like, how do I make this the most difficult place in the world to photograph? And they succeeded. So same with this. You have a little better light here, but again, it's about popping a strobe in there to really fill in the shadows. And by the way, she gets a prize for face. I'm notorious in my family for ruining every family photograph by making faces. Both my brother and I, kind of a skill we have. High school sports is a nightmare. Look at the lighting in these gymnasiums. It's very tricky. So fast lenses are essential. Again, this I've had plenty of newspaper assignments where I had to shoot high school basketball. So what you need here, one of the issues is you've got to shoot tighter. So your image is right here, basically. And we know they have legs, but that's really the shot right here. So you can either crop or you can shoot tighter, but you're also using a lens where there's a lot of depth of field going on here in the background. And you don't necessarily want that. You want to isolate it. So longer lens, faster, wider aperture. So if I was shooting this, I would be shooting at 1.4 or f2, whatever fast, medium, like 85 millimeter lens I had. And that background would really fall away in terms of focus. But high school sports are terrible in terms of lighting. And I'll tell you something that you may not recognize. When you watch a professional basketball game, there are strobes in the top of the arena. And when the photographers who are sitting on the sidelines are shooting, they have remote triggers on their camera that are triggering the strobes. And when I tell non-photographers that, they go, there's no strobes in the basketball game. I would have noticed it. Yes, there are. There are flashes in the ceiling of the arenas going off all the time, but you've seen it your entire life, so you don't think about it. I have done this many times. I've been assigned professional basketball games and sat on the sidelines, and you have a remote trigger and you pop it, and there's 4 strobes in the top of the arena that are lighting the players. So they're not doing it as much as they used to, because digital cameras are so much better than film cameras in terms of seeing in the dark. So they don't necessarily need to do it as much anymore, but it's happening. So Jim, you're going to do the same thing, but on a much smaller scale. You're just going to get a strobe and you're going to pop it in there, and it's going to make those a million times better. Okay. Eduardo Teixeira de Souza. Man, that's a name. I feel like I got shortchanged with my name, because if I could be Eduardo Teixeira de Souza, I would feel that much more accomplished. And I'm not joking. I think it's a great name. But in addition, Eduardo is a really good photographer. But Eduardo, you got to do me one thing. These are, he wrote standalone candid street moments. I get that, but I need more. I don't necessarily care where they are, like Photo Automat, Paris, Rotterdam, Amsterdam, Georgetown, Lhasa. I don't necessarily need that. What I need is why you're doing this. Like, what kind of photography is this? It's street photography. Yes, it's random moments, but I need more. And this is why I said, if you're going to submit street photography, you've got to give me more, because I see a lot of it. And I want to know about you as a photographer, and what is the deal? Why are you doing this? What's the end game? What's the ultimate goal of what this is going to be? But let's look at the work. So these are 5, what I think are really solid street photographs. You've got Photo Automat. You've got Eduardo here in his own reflection. But look at this. Like, this hand is fantastic. And then she, look at this face and her reflection, and she is looking straight down at the hand. That's really nice. And it's weird because it looks like the guy in here is wearing a trench coat, which can't be good. It's never a good sign. But I also love this blue, and I love this old school Photo Automat. That just looks awesome. This just makes me think of the Cold War. Like, that guy in there is not who he says he is. He's doing something bad. Beautiful pick. I really like this. And then same with this. Nice moment. And then you just have this, like, what is going on with that? So you have these ancient prayer wheels in the background. Nice little expression here with this looking up at this older person. The person is also in mid-stride. So you have a nice little moment here. These are moments. And really, I mean, to steal from Cartier-Bresson, the decisive moment, that's what street photographers are after. They're after moments where the foreground and the midground and the background all come together in some magical moment. Same with this. Pretty simple. A woman on her cell phone, but this and this, obviously playing off the backgrounds. And I don't know if Eduardo waited for this. A lot of street photographers will sit in a location that they think is a viable option, and they'll wait for the human elements to move and then pounce on those moments when everything comes together. So I think that's an interesting shot. Same with this. I think this is really beautiful. You have such nice structure here, this clean across the top. You've got the old school brick, and then you've got this new beautiful white modernity across the bottom, the contrast, but then also a movement and white. Of course, she's wearing white. And then, of course, she's wearing a white top. I mean, look at this: black top, black bottom, white top, white bottom, black and white shoes. I mean, come on. Yeah, so this is like, this never happens for me. That's why I'm terrible at street photography. So when I see good street photography, I'm like, oh, I could never pull this off. I think this is really beautiful. It's interesting. It's a statement about our times. It's a statement about consumerism and culture and architecture. Yeah, it's very nice. And then this one, which looks too like this would be the ultimate spot to wait. That looks like a Banksy in the background. I don't know if it is, but it kind of has that Banksy feel. And then this guy, and also, I mean, anybody with rainbow sleeves, that guy's cool. I want to hang out with him. But you can see, obviously, the repetition of pattern here. Foreground, live action foreground, background, similar. Yeah, it's nice. It's clean. I think that a good street photographer is looking for clarity within the clutter. The street is nothing but clutter, and they're trying to encapsulate pieces of that clutter concisely. And I think this does that. So again, these are 5 really solid street photography. Edward, the only thing and I'm sure you've done this, is I would look at 5, 10, 15, 20 images from the same location. And then I would do the same thing with every location. And then at some point, your assignment is in masterclass is to edit all of your work together. Patricia Pulido. Okay, Patricia, you just said street photography. That's not enough. I want to know where and why and when, but I want to get through these quickly. I thought this was also a really nice body of work. So we have this one, this guy who I love. He looks a little ticked off. I think those are pork rinds. Makes me hungry. I like this. I like the angle. And then I really love this. I think this is a beautiful, beautiful image. So this is nice. These are, again, when I pop out here and look at these together. They look like 5 images that are supposed to be together. The color palette, the tone, the contrast, the sharpness, everything is the same. This is a cohesive body. So you can argue about whether or not these are your favorite moments. Like I think to me, sorry, let me get my mouse here in the right spot. I think to me, the image is kind of here more than anything else. I don't necessarily need to see all this stuff. That to me. So maybe there's a photograph within the photograph. You could have moved forward a tiny bit more. This is fine. And these are hard scenes to shoot at. If you've ever been to a street fair or market, these are not easy because you're in hard light and then deep shade. So she's done a good job here of trying to, like, exposure wise. And there's a moment happening. There's a pork rind transition. And oh, by the way, it looks like she's wearing a pork rind. So this looks very similar. This looks suspiciously like this. So I kind of like that. Style points. And then this nice moment, she's in the middle of a gesture. And I kind of, in this particular case, this adds to the flavor of the image. I mean, look at this little religious thing in the background. And then you've got, now I'm getting an idea of where this is, based on what this signage is. So this is a good environmental portrait. And then this is just a beautiful moment to me because of, look at the light on the faces. And this is a big reflector. So the light's coming in here and it's bouncing off back onto these folks. That's pretty nice. I don't know what that is. It almost looks like a bag of like goldfish, but maybe I'm wrong. And he's holding some green, I don't know, step stool for whatever reason. Who knows? I'm not here to explain. And I love the little boy's hand on the window. I think this is a beautiful frame, but also really nice use of color. Really nice use of color. This is not, to me, a black and white essay. This is a color. And I love this guy because it looks like he's making eye contact with the photographer. He looks slightly ticked off or suspicious. But again, look at that color. Very nice. So I think overall, Patricia, very nice work, but also write me. Tell me more about who you are, what you're doing, where this is, and why you're working this way. Wendy, I told you I was going to look at your work, Wendy. Okay, she's given us locations and names here, but I would love more. And when I look at this work, it was pretty quick to me, Wendy, which ones of these stood out to me and which ones didn't. So when I looked, just immediately, this one, and this one jumped out. This one was close, but no cigar. And this one, nope, didn't fit. So let's look at this one. Walking in the middle, there are aspects of this image I like. You've got dynamic element forcing your eye down here. Nice horizon line. But, okay, we're going to save that one for last. This one, I love. Look at the moment. Boom. Very dramatic, very graphic, very, very easy to suck you in. Same with this, interesting pose. There's a real animation to her. The pose is very different than a normal portrait pose, which kind of makes me go, stops for a second. You go, okay, this is kind of cool. What's happening here? And the same for this, where it's obviously crafted portrait, but the red offsetting the green. You have a really strong foreground here. So you're shooting through things, which I really like. You didn't just go up and say like, bang, I'm going to shoot from here. And this is the one that doesn't belong, because you can tell the distance from which you are shooting this picture. This one feels more detached. I don't feel the same connection between you and the person in the frame. And I understand it's an environmental portrait. You're trying to give an idea of like this firehouse and where it's a little more atmospheric, but it doesn't have the same strength and pull that and that have. Those three to me are the keepers. This was close, not quite. And this one, no, it doesn't belong. But I also need to know more about why I'm looking at these people. Who are they? Why are you photographing them? And how are they related? Because I'm not getting that from just says portrait work in nature. So, okay, portrait work in nature. Why? Who are they? Why did you choose these people? Why did you choose to put them in these places? And are they in these places for specific reasons, or you just thought it was a cool location? So again, I need a little bit more, but overall, I like the portraits. And also too, you're kind of a pulled back portrait person. The environment is important. And I think that's interesting, because a lot of times people just go super tight. And okay, I can see what the person looks like, but why am I looking at them in these locations? So that's your next homework assignment. Okay, and the last one is Richard. This is hilarious. Richard said, I've purposely submitted a diverse selection of images, various genres, in order that I may increase my chances of having at least one selected for review. I love it, Richard. I feel you. However, I would do the exact opposite next time, because again, I'm looking at 5 different pictures. Now, I'm not saying these are bad pictures, not at all. In fact, when I look at the first one, this one kind of made me think of Miami Vice, which is clearly the best television show in the history of television. But I looked at this, took me a minute to figure out what I was looking at. And I love this abstract imagery. I think this is great. I would have loved to have seen 5 images that from this family, because then you could do something cool with layouts. You could do a small zine with this sort of abstract work. So I think this is good and solid. And again, anything that makes me think of Miami Vice, you 5-star. You're automatically my favorite photographer. Now we have sort of a street scene. We've got the quintessential old car. I live in New Mexico. This is about every 100, 150 yards in New Mexico. You're going to come across something like this. It's not bad. Weird angle, which I like. And the door open, solid. There's some good aspects to this. This to me is the weakest of the lot, although looks like India, makes me want to go there. This building looks incredible. And then we have a portrait session. So again, it's a little bit hard to connect the dots here. This makes me think that you're paying attention, because you're seeing these abstract things. This is a level above somebody who's just picked up a camera and said, like, I don't know what I'm doing. You obviously saw something here that looks really cool. That's interesting and different. Street photography, okay, I've seen this a million times, but the light is nice. So maybe I give you the benefit of the doubt and I say, okay, you're really paying attention to something like light, which is to me the most important part of any documentary photograph: light, timing, and composition, in that order. So I think, okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. The car, I've just seen a lot. Again, not a bad car. Rusty, like the blue, like the green, the doors open, but I've seen it. And this one kind of felt like a throw in. Like, okay, I went to India and it was super cool and I need to throw something in there, but I would love to see your other India stuff. And I would love to see 5 pictures from India so that I can get a gauge of what your trip was like. And then the portrait thing is fine. And there's Phil Strobe in here, which is nice and balanced. She's also backlit, which tells me that was probably studio image where you're using multiple light sources, which is also a definite skill. It's a lot harder than it looks, and you've balanced everything out nicely. You've also put a vignette on this to really bring your attention right here, which is what we want you to look at. So Richard, overall, fine. I think next time I would submit 5 images from the same theme, and I would also choose color or black and white, because anytime you add color and black and white together, you're upping your degree of difficulty exponentially. So overall, let's have a look-see here at the private chat. We're good. I'm going to go to the comments. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to come back here. That was a really interesting group of people, interesting body of work. Every single one of the people whose work I reviewed, there's something to learn from them. It could be something they did with their framing or how they saw light, but it also could be something that they didn't do or could have done better that you can learn from. But to go back to Xenia, which was the 3rd person I looked at, that single image of the woman on the couch, those pictures, the Alexandre's picture of the lone kayaker, those are the kind of clues that tell me where you will be as a photographer in 4 or 5 years. So everybody had tells, little clues inside there. And yeah, thanks for, we're getting close to the end here. You're very welcome, Eduardo. I thought that work was really nice. By the way, the Banksy street art, the bike shot is from Lithuanian, Ernest Zakharevich. Nice, interesting. Yeah, good job. Always, anytime you get a chance to submit your work and have someone look at it, not just me, but anyone else, but also take into consideration, I'm one person. I come from the photojournalism documentary tradition. I don't come from necessarily the portrait world, even though I shot portraits for 7 years. So I'm one person with one opinion. If you go to a portfolio review and you show your work, you could show it to 10 people and 5 might tell you you're a genius and the other 5 might say you have no chance. So ultimately it's in you to make the decisions, but take some of these basic things about guidance, writing about your work, describing who you are, what you're doing. Those are really important things, because when someone says, are you a photographer? What kind of photography do you do? You need to have a concise answer that is more than, oh, I just like it. So those are the kind of little things that they never teach you in photography school. And Patricia just wrote for all of us to know that she shoots in Mexico City, and her intention is to get a book just for me, not interested in submitting. Yeah, making a book is going to force you to apply critical thought to your work. It's going to make you choose only the very best. And that exercise in itself is one of the most important things you can do. I say this all the time, and I'm sure people think I say it because I work for Blur. Bookmaking makes you a better photographer, because you can't lie. When you go to edit and you start to lay out the book, you can see immediately what you have and don't have. And there's no fudging it. You have to either, you have to, once you figure out there's a big hole, you got to go back and fill it. So it just makes you better. You don't need to make anything huge. You can start small, making zines, and work your way up to the photo book, but really good. Hi, Megan. Yeah, and also too, there's a lot of interesting people on this call who are really good photographers, and you can all learn from each other as well. So, always take notes. Look at who's out there, whose work. If you see somebody's work that I'm reviewing and you say, I really like that work, write their name down, reach out to them and say, hey, I saw some of those pictures you did. How'd you do that? Or how can I learn how to do that? That's how we all get better as photographers. I only had a career because of other people helping me have a career. No way I was going to figure it out on my own. It's tax season here in the United States, and when I was submitting my taxes, I had a flashback to, I was assisting for a photographer back in like 1993 when I've had my first real job in photography. And we were driving down the street and he goes, "How are you doing your taxes?" And I just remember thinking, I'm supposed to pay taxes? And I had to go to H&R Block that night because it was like tax deadline day. I was so clueless. I had no idea what I was doing. So if it wasn't for these other folks, I never would have made it. So yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in and joining us for this. We will be doing more. Make sure you sign up for the next event and also tell us what you would like to see when it comes to events. And we will see you next time.